Hi, I'm Lauren Magee. Thanks for joining me today in this Kaplan Live event. I was honored to be asked to come and speak with you all, and I'm glad that you've joined us. I want to get started by telling you a little bit about myself. I'm an architect. I'm a former teacher. I'm the director of architecture and environmental design for GuideCraft. So in that role, I design learning environments for kids around the world. And mostly I focus on early childhood and infant and toddler environments. But the other big role that I play, in this story of my life is I'm a mom. I'm a mom of 3 kids, ages 3, 7, and 9. And like you, if you're watching this, you're responsible for kids too. Maybe you're a teacher, maybe you're a parent, a grandparent, a caregiver of some kind. And, like you, I had to figure out how to set up, how to kind of rearrange my life in a way to accommodate them now that they're home indefinitely. And I should say, right, when I'm stressed, I have 2 kind of things that I do. One is I bake. I bake a ton. I bake cookies and brownies and cakes, and I try experimental recipes. I do a lot of that. My family benefits obviously from that, and so do I. I like all the treats. But the other thing I do is I pathologically rearrange my house. So in this set of circumstances, I'm home all the time. My kids are home all the time, and so I realized I was going to have to lend those skills to a space in my house that was really going to benefit from it. I did take down curtains and I rearranged some stuff in my kids' rooms, but very quickly I realized I was going to need to find a space where my kids could spend their days, where my husband works from home full time, I work from home full time. So, thankfully we didn't have a big change in our work setup. Our work schedules have changed dramatically, but with the addition of 3 kids who are, far from quiet, far from compliant, right, all the time, like kids are, I needed a space that I'd be able to separate, I'd be able to have some sound control, and then beyond those like really practical things, I wanted a space that was inspiring, space where they'd want to spend their days. And because I have to be with them, right, they can't just hang out there by themselves, I needed it to be a space I wanted to be into. So I started with this space in my house. As an architect, I decided I would illustrate this with a drawing. And I want to just interject here. There is going to be a video posted after my video ends. You can go to Kaplan Live, and you can also visit their YouTube channel to see a video of my actual space. But for now, this diagram is going to have to suffice, and I'm going to walk you through some of the changes that I made to the space. So this is the space that we've dedicated to our home learning environment. This space is set up, you can see here, we have these built-in bookshelves. We've only lived in this house, we've lived here for less than a year. We lived in a house, it was 1,400 square feet for all 5 of us, and we still work from home, and we were bursting at the seams. So we've bought a house, and this one thankfully has built-in bookshelves. We have an enormous book collection. My husband and I are both avid readers, our kids love reading, and so this room kind of centers on the built-in bookshelves, and these bookshelves have cabinets below, and there's also a fireplace. So these are some of the things that they weren't going anywhere, and they're my givens in the room. I already had some furniture in this space. I had set up this couch, a round rug, a round carpet, and 2 armchairs and a piano. And these were other things I really didn't want to have to move. And they were already set up in a way, we don't have a coffee table here. So this was a nice clear zone. And I had just bought, right before we were kind of on lockdown at home, I had just bought a brand new white table with some white chairs for this space. So this is what I started with. The other storage pieces that I had were 2 cabinets, closed cabinets with cabinet doors, and 2 of those padded top storage bins, which really, they're the bane of my existence. I have way too many of them, but I knew I was really excited to have those come out of the room. As I started thinking about what I wanted to do with this space to make it more conducive to having my kids home, I needed to think kind of big picture, right? What do they need? What do they need to, to have successful days? So our school district, we haven't officially received our distance learning yet. We've received some packets, but we're really not intended to start those until after spring break. So I knew that, right? And I knew I was going to have about a month of time with my kids where I was going to have to engage them in some way. I'm not an elementary school teacher, right? And so I have a fourth grader and a first grader, and then my 3-year-old, she's in daycare, but her daycare, she goes to 2 daycares, but they're both kind of set up like preschool settings. And so, I'm not, I don't teach every day, but I'm a big fan of project-based learning. As an architect, I went to architecture school, and all of my projects, they're sort of expansive projects where you have a focus, you have kind of an end goal or topic that you're studying, but there's the opportunity to bring in other disciplines. So, architecture is at its best when it's not just about architecture. And really, in my mind, every subject is kind of like that. Math is most interesting when you see it applied in different ways. When we bring, word problems and integrate aspects of language arts into it, or, science learning where we're reading and we're conducting experiments and, maybe reading about something in science takes us down another path. And with kids at 3 different ages and 3 different developmental stages, I have to be really flexible with how I work with them. I can't expect my 3-year-old to be working on the same things as my 9-year-old. However, I do have to have them in the same space. And often when one is working on one set of materials, the other wants to be able to work on those materials too. And that's just a reality of kids, right? They clump. They clump whether you want it or not, whether they want to be together or not, they clump. They're like, sticky, literally and metaphorically. So I thought about what my kids needed. My 9-year-old, I knew I would be able to set up a computer for him or a workstation, a desk somewhere out of eyesight and maybe out of, earshot, because he's pretty independent. So down here is my dining room, and I have a desk set up in my dining room for him where he can have some, solitude, quiet, focused work. My 7-year-old, we did start thinking, okay, we're going to need a laptop, something where he can work on his own, but with support. So I knew computers, it's a fact of life. When you have elementary age kids, they're going to be doing distance learning. I knew I needed computing setups for both of them. So those were givens. I cleared out this other furniture, but I needed to add back in some storage. So behind the couch, a floating couch works really nicely in a room, especially if there's a piece of furniture behind it to kind of anchor it, right? So that you're not just staring at the back of a couch. So I put a set of shelves. It has compartments, and those are open shelves. I was so reluctant to give up my closed cabinets, but anyone who has closed cabinets knows those closed cabinets are kind of a blessing and a curse. I had a lot of stuff in there, right? Like I had scraps of construction paper that little holes have been cut out of, and I was just saving for a rainy day. I removed all that. I made sure that the materials that I had out were fresh, that the kids wanted to use them. And so I have a set of shelves now where I have a stack of colored construction paper. I have a stack of blank white paper. I have a stack of lined graph, and then the kind of lined paper that a first grader would use. So wider spacing, because he's still practicing handwriting and spelling and things like that. On those shelves, I also have reference books, and I have some clear bins. And I'm going to get back to the storage, how we kind of store things. But I do have some clear bins so that the kids can see what's in them, so they can take the supplies they need without needing me to get it for them. So the other thing that I added was a low work table. So while my nice new table works really well for me and really well for my boys. My daughter, who's 3, it's not great, right? The chairs are a little tall for her. So I added this nice work table for her. And this table happens to have this nice long benches that tuck underneath. And on that table, I put a couple of trays of supplies for her. Trays, these trays, they're nice looking trays, wood trays that I got at a local store. And you can't see, I drew little blocks inside those trays, but they have supplies that if she uses those supplies, it's not a million things that I need to clean up. You know, it's not tiny little building pieces. It's, you know, these nice mirrored reflective blocks. I've got feather, I've got pine cones from time to time. I've got, what else do I have? I've got slices of tree stumps, you know, interesting things. And then the other thing that's been out now for about a whole week, I'm actually staring at the table right now. I have a tray of kinetic sand. Kinetic sand is that sticky sand, and I find that to be like a fantastic material because it doesn't make a huge mess, but it's really tactile and engaging. And my 3-year-old loves this table, but my 7-year-olds and even my 9-year-olds will come and work at this table because kind of absentmindedly, the kids like to, you know, touch stuff and make stuff and build things and kind of work through, you know, imagination and scenarios, you know, by engaging with physical materials. The other thing that I put in this space, this is our kind of studio space, a multi-purpose space, but I also added some pieces for dramatic play for my daughter. And you can see that this space is adjacent to my kitchen, and I do a ton of cooking in the kitchen with my kids. I have a kitchen helper that brings my 3-year-old up to the height of the counter. I have a lower step stool for my 7-year-old, and my 9-year-old can reach the counter, but I cook a ton. I love when they're in the kitchen. I cooked with my own mom, you know, and that's meaningful to me. So having this adjacency means that she mimics some of what I'm doing. And then my boys have actually taken over. They play restaurant. And so they run a restaurant as a business. They buy and sell, they take orders, they make orders, they take breaks, you know, oh, you can't take your order right now, break. You know, it's very cute. And they engage my 3-year-old in it, you know, and so those types of play are more likely to happen in a space like this, right, at home. And in a school, you can't have a 3-year-old, 7-year-old, and 9-year-old together in a classroom, right? It's the rare school that can do that. But in my home, I have to, in all of our homes, we have to. And there's real opportunity it's a challenge, but there's real opportunity there. So let's keep going. Also in this space, I have an easel, that's this, that I'm using right now. And I always have this easel set up. I have little cups set up with materials, again, that I'm comfortable with my 3-year-old taking and using without me freaking out. So I don't have paint set up all the time. This is where we paint and I have to set up for that. But then I have other things that she can grab. She's learning how to use scissors. I've got like, you know, crayons and fun pencils and, you know, washable markers. And I always have a piece of paper like this she wanted to draw on last night because I set it up last night. But I always have something set up for her to work with here. So this space is our multifunctional space and it has great natural light. This is a screen porch. These are windows into my backyard. The natural light piece is really important to me. You know, if my kids were going to spend all day, every day here, I wanted them to be in a space full of natural light, and I wanted to be in a space full of natural light. You know, sometimes we're working with the lights off, and that's lovely. You know, I like that. I like kind of feeling the passage of time, seeing how natural light kind of travels across surfaces. We've got all sorts of cool transparent things that we hold up, and we see how the light projects on other surfaces. So let's keep going. Let's keep going because I have a habit of talking for a long time. Oh, I will say though, the other thing that I did here was I took away one of these chairs and I added in a motion stool. I have 2 motion stools and these are really portable, right? They're easy for my kids to lift up. So my 9-year-old likes using this one here. And then I have another one here in the kitchen for my 7-year-old. And you know, my kids are wiggly when they learn, and probably if you're a teacher watching, you can attest, kids are wiggly. They like to move. And so I love bringing in something kind of unique and fun for my boys to have that at home, you know, so they can wiggle and they can concentrate and they can easily move those chairs. So I'm not also constantly listening to my, dining room chairs being dragged across the floor because right? I've read tons of articles, all those little sounds now that we're hearing from our family on a, 24-hour basis, like those little things get to us and they get to me too. So these stools, pick them up, move them, and they're nice and light. So this space is our big open rug, and I love using baskets to hold materials. So these are baskets full of wood blocks, and they can easily drag these baskets out, bring them onto the carpet, dump the blocks out. It's a small selection of wood blocks. It's not a whole block collection. It's just enough where, again, at the end of the day, if they have to clean up, it's quick. And inevitably, if I have to clean up, it's not a million pieces that I'm going to be like ruining the day that I brought these blocks upstairs. You can see that this space also has, it has our piano in it. And again, baskets, they're not permanent commitments. Baskets are inexpensive. I had them all over the house. And so I just repurposed some and threw a bunch of handheld instruments in here. And it's right next to our piano. And so this space, when the blocks are cleared out, this is also where we sit and we read books, we do puzzles, we do music and dancing right here. And I think in many, especially in early childhood classrooms, a big rug is a multi-purpose space. And so this rug that I have kind of looks like an earthy terrain rug, but it's abstract. And so it doesn't dictate what happens. It's kind of free form, and what the activities that happen here are free form too. The other thing that I added to this space was a little armchair for my daughter. It's like a child-sized armchair. A lot of you probably have them at home. They're little foam ones. This one happens to be like a vinyl and wood one. But I really wanted to provide within this bigger environment spaces for my kids to be alone, right? We're here all together all the time, but we each need alone time. And it's really hard to achieve at school, right? To give a child space to be alone where they can have some quietude, right? Some moment to reflect, a moment to observe what's going on in the classroom. I know teachers, you try to do that as much for your kids. And at home, I need to do that too, because my kids, sometimes they say, go take a break, but go take a break. It's a real need. And so by providing small spaces like a little chair, this one has a basket right behind it of stuff that's easy to access for her. And then I also set up behind these chairs, it's like a sheltered little nook. These are, hard edges of the chairs. I set up 2 little foam chairs and a little mat. I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of small, but it's 2 little foam chairs and a basket, again, of books. There's a stuffed animal in there. And this is like kind of the inverse. This is bigger seating and this is smaller seating, just where, my daughter and sometimes my 7-year-old even sits here and just grabs something to look at on his own. And it feels like a secret little nook. I set up another work table over here. I love having access to, a light tablet if you have it, or just, more smaller scale work, manipulatives, stuff that I don't really want all the time in my messier art craft space. But over here, I have a light tablet set up, and I have things like this. I bought this little tray, and I have lots of fun little transparent stones and markers from math games that she likes to work with on that tablet. And again, this is another nook. I have a wall-mounted like a sconce here that projects light on there. So if she's not doing a tablet, working on the light tablet. And a light tablet is it's like an LED light panel. So she puts things down, transparencies, x-rays, whatever. She can see through and it illuminates from behind. So, it's not a computer. That's confusing. The other thing that I did in this area was I laid down a runner, a skinny runner. I've been kind of meaning to put something down there. And because these built-in bookshelves are here with cabinets below, I have a lot of small stuff stored in there, puzzles and, wood boards, the kind of wood board puzzle, latch boards, things that really are just appropriate for one kid to work on at a time. And this space is perfect for that. I can't really get a whole cluster of kids in this zone. And so the space itself kind of tells the children, here's how you should use this space. And so my oldest son loves to take puzzles. We have big, not big, physically big, but big multi-piece puzzles. I have a wood board that he can work on puzzles on, and he sits here right in front of these double doors, which go out to our deck and also get a ton of natural light. And he just sits and he works. And again, this is tucked away. And I think maybe he thinks, and maybe it's true, like his younger siblings, if they're over here, they don't actually see him working back there. And so he kind of focus on whatever he wants to do, zone out, work on a puzzle, grab a book, and kind of sit back there and be quiet and alone. I also, on top of this shelf, this is a low shelf. I put a ton of open baskets of stuff. So getting back to project-based learning, like I said, my 9-year-old's not going to do the same thing as my 3-year-old. So I have materials out. This is a high ledge, and my daughter can't actually see what's in these baskets. So I use that to my advantage. And so I have it zoned out where I have a zone for social studies, a zone for science, a zone for math, and then very close to her light table, I have a couple of magnifying glasses and some, kind of slices of stone like agate where you can see through. It's really pretty colors. So the place where she can access has stuff that's appropriate for her. But these other baskets, I have a balance where we've been working through some science experiments, just kind of weighing things, comparing. We've done some evaporation condensation experiments. And so we use our materials, my first grader, my fourth grader, I can take them to different levels. They learn from one another, right? Because they're together. They're kind of, right, zones of proximity. They're learning from one another, but they're each taking the projects to the level that's appropriate. And then my social studies area, I have really interesting, atlas books that my husband and I had. I have, some map puzzles that I have accessible for them. And so I've tried to make my space, accessible to my kids so that they can be as independent as possible. Because really what I found is, their independence, giving them some independence gives me some independence because I have stuff I need to get done. I'm still working. And I'm working less. Thankfully, my work arrangement has been, very accommodating. I think many work arrangements have been, but, I still have work I need to do. I have calls I need to make. I have other life stuff I need to get done. And so, by putting here books and pencils and, rulers and things like that, access to open bins like this, right? Just a basket with a couple of things in it. This looks really basic, but it's light. My 3-year-old can grab this and she can just, use her microscope when she wants to, especially if she sees, I'm working with her brothers on a more involved microscope project. I can set her up with her magnifying glass and take a look at some pictures of things so that she's working kind of in a parallel way. And I can work with each of them on similar topics, but meet them where they need. So I'm going to wrap up, and hopefully you've enjoyed this, and I hope that you'll watch the YouTube video that I put together. I think it's been shared. It will be shared here if it hasn't already. It's also on my YouTube channel, Lauren's Learning Lab, and you can follow me there or on my Instagram account at Lauren's Learning Lab. I'm going to continue to make videos about our experience. And just a note about that name, Lauren's Learning Lab, I'm thinking of this time as an experiment. The space is a laboratory, right? And we're conducting an experiment. I don't know how this will turn out. I'm optimistic. I hope it will go well. I think we all are, but this is a challenging time. And so having a way to work with our kids that feels productive, feels like they're engaged, even without, having dedicated home learning from the school, like we can provide them with resources and opportunities to engage and, broaden their minds and learn new things, in creative ways. And so that's what I'm hoping to achieve, here in my space, Lauren's Learning Lab, and hopefully I've inspired you a little bit to kind of think about your own space. So thanks again. And, thank you, Kathleen, for giving me the opportunity to talk today. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.